Greetings! My name is Turdin, and I am definitely not making this video with a gun to my head. What I was trying to say is that I made this video completely by my own volition and because I really wanted to. A lot. So let's not waste any more time and get into everyone's favorite pretty boy. The 11th Harbinger. Childe. Did I read that right? So once upon a not so ye olden time, there was a fine fellow known as Childe, also known as Ajax, also known as Tartaglia, also known as Griffith. And by fine fellow, I mean shy little kid. So our good friend Ajax was just kinda hanging about, vibing, eating cebureki and playing with his družba. When one day, inspired by dear daddy Tartaglia telling him tales of adventure in the great wide world, he decided to venture out and forge himself a legend of his very own. Which he technically did, as he then immediately tripped down a dark hole and ended up in Lovecraftian super hell. Something that can apparently just kinda happen in fantasy, not Russia. However, just as our dearest little friend was about to be munched on by a very hungry Shoggoth, he was saved by a kind and totally human wanderer that just so happened to be hanging out there, called Skirk, which is a very real human name used by very real normal humans. It was here with the aid of Skirk that I and then stabbed it with a spoon. This apparently took 3 entire old blood sipping months, and by the end of it, little Tartaglia was just a teeniest bit traumatized and completely dead inside. But before he completely cracked and could put a cage on his head while wailing like a cat with a vuvuzela stuck in its throat, he actually managed to find his way out, back into the normal world above. But not before his dearest master, Skurt Canterbrute, gave him a little farewell gift in the form of the Foul Legacy armor. A suit of magical, otherworldly, and totally not cursed armor that gives him unimaginable power at the cost of only slowly eating his soul every time he wears it. What a nice lady. But as he emerged back into the light and eventually found his way back to his dearest Matroshka and his absolute crapload of siblings, both of the younger and older variety, he was quite surprised that those 3 months he had just spent in Brazil were but 3 days back in the land of the living, which was a bit concerning, but not nearly as concerning as how cute little Ajax had just turned from his shy little level 1 baby to a confident, charming and battle-hungry level 100 mega boss. Tagliatella lad now only lived for the thrill of battle, and after slapping several local thugs and or anyone that looked at him funny around as if they were a stress ball and he had gone months without masturbating, his parents decided that they couldn't really do much to keep him in check and that maybe the ever so morally upstanding Fatui could reel him in a bit better. Spoiler alert! They could not, and Mr. Taggles immediately clapped the cheeks of several armed soldiers with such ferocity that their asses were permanently scarred from the experience and they lost all semblance of tick in their lower bodies. Seeing this 14-year-old kid completely body several of Snezhnaya's finest, one of the Harbingers and resident goblin Grandpa Pulcinella immediately recognized the dormant spark of a playable character in young Ajax and took him on board in the hopes of aiming his lust for battle in such a way that it would further the Fatui's best interests. Which he sort of did, as he in no time rose through the ranks and was even crowned as one of the Harbingers himself, now taking the codename of, drumroll please, Childe. Now, you might expect that inserting some young arrogant troublemaker Ra into the tight established order of the Harbingers would turn out a bit iffy, that it would create some conflicts and butt some heads when someone who loves nothing more than a good straightforward punch-up had to work on the same level as a bunch of conniving and scheming villains so cartoonishly evil I still half expect Skeletor to show up as a secret member one day. Well, my dear lovely handsome listener, you would be completely correct in that assessment. Childe is not appreciated much by his quote-unquote colleagues. In fact, I'd confidently say that most of them hate his fucking guts, as his constant need to be in the spotlight and straightforward attitude tends to attract a lot of unwanted attention to the aforementioned schemes, which is typically not something you want to happen. Which is kinda good, because the sentiment is also echoed by the main man himself. While he can be surprisingly professional once he's on the job, this is really more out of loyalty to the Tsaritsa, whom he loves to bits, than really any care for the Fatui as a whole. In fact, he really only sticks with them because, being the bunch of Saturday morning cartoon villains that they are, they tend to be at the center of conflict, which means a steady supply of faces to kick in and strong opponents to fight. Kind of like a somehow even more attractive Adam Smasher if he didn't look like a toaster cosplaying as a man. Though despite this incredibly well thought out comparison, it need be stated that, and this is the last part of the video, so I'll turn the clownometer down a notch and talk a teensy bit more seriously now, Childe isn't just an evil bloodthirsty murder machine. He's not a bad person, but he's not a good one either. He's more like the purest and most violent form of chaotic neutral, someone who does not care on which side and against who he fights, only that said fight is a good one. He dislikes killing those who are significantly weaker than him or who can't pose a threat, but he isn't the type to let a mission fuck up because of his feelings. He loves his family dearly, often dotes on his younger siblings, and can be a genuinely nice and charming person, but that doesn't automatically mean he can do no wrong and is absolved of any sin. That's right, it's the one thing people on the internet can't stand. An actually complex and interesting character who isn't straightforward good and evil. He's someone who wants to stand as the strongest in the entire world, basking in his victory atop a pile of his defeated foes, and who enjoys nothing more than to see his skills truly tested, but simultaneously not someone who has sacrificed their humanity and soul to do so. The battlefield is his theater, the fighting and bloodshed his song, and the victorious silence afterwards his glorious standing ovation. Also, he's totally banging your sister.